So when it comes to preparing for an interview, one of the first things I like to do is start doing my research. So doing research is basically me going to the company's website, seeing if there's any recent news on this company, seeing what's going on with the company, also seeing what type of services they offer if it's a company I'm not really aware of, but getting an overall insight and an outlook on what this company does. Then also I'm checking to see, okay, the services they offer, is this company a managed service provider, or am I coming in providing in-house support? Is this a very small company, a couple hundred users, or is this a mid-sized company, or is this a very large publicly traded company? So all of them, each one of these positions is going to have a different meaning at each one of these jobs. So I'm checking for all that. And then at the same time, I'm formulating questions about this company or things I may want to ask during the interview. And then after they're doing that, sometimes you may be able to go to Glassdoor and see if you can find any reviews on this particular company. Sometimes with Glassdoor, they put it behind a paywall where you may have to leave a review in order to see a review. But I'm going to try to see if I can find any kind of other reviews or anything like that about the company. So Glassdoor is usually the best place for that. If it's a very large company, you may be able to just put it in Google and see what pops up. But overall, I'm just doing my due diligence on this company. That way, once I get in the interview, I will be well informed about what this company does. Anything I'm confused about, I'll be able to ask someone who's interviewing me to get some more insight and get some clarity. So after doing my research on the company, my next step is to go back and look over the job description that I applied for. So sometimes, it may end up where you applied for multiple jobs and this job may have been one that you applied for months ago. So I'm going to go back, find the job description, just give it an overlook just to make sure that I'm capable or that I meet some of the requirements. 9 times out of 10, you're not going to meet all of their requirements. Some jobs now, they put everything on the job description. And even though that the person they end up hiring may only be able to do 25% or 30% of what they have listed on that job description. But as always, you want to let this company know, or the people that's interviewing you, let them know that you're eager to learn. Yeah, I can't do everything, but I'm willing to learn how to do this if someone could show me. Give me a couple of months, or if this job is asking for a certain certification, let's say if you don't already have that certification, you may say that, okay, I'm studying towards this certification, where that job may be able to give you a year or 6 months to get that certification. So being open-minded and letting the job know that you're eager to learn. And then, like I said, just overlook the job description so that you know exactly what you're going and what you're being interviewed for. So one of the things I did back when I got my first IT role in healthcare, basically what happened was I had applied for the job. I think it was probably over 3 or 4 months before I got called. So when I got called and I'm walking in, they showing me around, I still didn't know what I was being interviewed for. So I didn't know what I was being interviewed for until I walked in the data center and I seen all the screens and everything. And I'm like, man, who be in here? And, they looked at me and said, oh, this is where you'll be if you get hired. So I'm like, oh, okay. So just, it happens sometimes. So make sure you can go back, look at the job description, just so you know that what you're going and what you're being interviewed for. So the next thing I like to look at is the interview process. So as you're going into your first interview at this organization, some places may interview in 2 to 3 different stages. So usually your first interview, it may end up being with a recruiter. So basically, when you're talking to this recruiter, their main goal is to get a feel for your personality. So they're going to ask you general questions. They may not even get into no technical questions. Most of the time, they're asking general questions, seeing where you was born at, where you raised up, seeing how you overall get a good feel for your personality and what type of person you are. So the second phase of the interview process is usually you meeting with the team or you meeting with the manager of that team. So basically, this is where you'll get some of those technical questions at. So this is where they're going to ask questions that pertain to your job role. So you stated that you're going for a lot of IT technician roles and help desk roles. So this is where those general IT support questions and things like that, this is where you're going to get asked those questions. And then also you need to prepare for questions that's not technical, but questions like how would you handle certain things? So questions that may ask you, when was the last time you had to work with a team? Or questions that may ask you, when was the last time you showed patience from working with a user that may not be up to par or may not be computer savvy, because you're going into those customer support type roles. And then also, of course, customer service is always high here. So they may want to know, okay, what type of customer service experience you have. So then you can go back into your resume, any other jobs you may have had where you had to work directly dealing with the public, or where you had to have some form of customer service. As trust me, customer service usually goes a long way when it comes to the IT technician position, and especially when it comes to those help desk positions. But at this part of the interview process, this is where you're usually going to get more of those technical questions. Quick pause. I'd like to introduce you to the Log Files. The Log Files is a weekly newsletter to help you start your IT career with practical advice and tips, powered by yours truly. I launched it in the beginning of the year. It's packed with actionable advice, resources, and insights to kickstart your IT journey. The link is in the description as well as pinned in the comments, so don't miss out. Now back to the episode. So my next tip is to make sure that you prepare for those common IT interview questions. So during the interview, you're going to get hit with some common questions. Then you're going to get hit with some general IT support questions. The common questions, they're going to come in the form of, the most common ones that I always hear is basically, how would you handle an upset user, upset customer? What would you do if you got asked a question and you didn't know the answer to something, or you had an issue and you didn't know the answer to it? How would you go about finding that answer? And then also name a time where you went above and beyond to help a customer. So basically these common questions that you may get is basically to kind of see where your head's at, what type of person you are also. So a lot of this that goes into the interview process is a lot of seeing what type of person you are, how you answer certain questions, trying to get a feel of how you may react in certain situations. Even though just from coming up with these questions, it's not 100% guaranteed, but basically every interview I ever went to, basically I got asked a couple of those common questions. So make sure that you're ready. A lot of times, instead of sitting there having to think, a lot of times you think in advance where you may already have some moments or things at your previous job that can exude or that can help out with those common questions. But basically, we know that you're going to get common questions and then you're going to get technical questions. So that's one of the tips I always like to think about also, or brainstorm on, because I know 9 times out of 10, I'm going to get some type of question like that where I may have to go back and talk about a time from a previous job where I helped out a customer, or something where I went above and beyond for a customer.